Welcome to CHGO Red Stars Podcast, presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy Lala Friday. It's your girl, Sandra, Herrera, joined today, as always, by my friend, homie, and colleague, Watkins, a.k.a. the Scam Originator, taking front center stage.
Here I am.
Here today because we have a special guest, another friend, homie, and colleague, Alex Campbell of the CHGO Fire podcast, but also, throwback to some
veteran
days.
I know, right?
Former Red Stars press box.
That's right. We miss you out there.
Inhabitor, or whatever we're calling.
Yeah, and we were
PBT.
like, you know what? There's a lot going on this weekend, but the only thing that matters is the doubleheader taking place at Soldier Field on Saturday.
There it is.
The official CHGO tailgate at the Waldron deck. It's going to be a collab between CHGO Fire and Red Stars, so you should come through.
Heck
It's going to be kicking off at 2 p.m. And, if you're intrigued by the challenge of attending 38,000 different tailgates, we should at least be number one.
Yeah, for sure.
That spot.
Sponsored by Revolution Brewing.
It's
you can
true.
Come get some Chicago
Some
Fire-branded
free-
hazy pitch.
That's right.
If you're like, guys, I have so many plans going on this day. I've got tailgate random number 1 and tailgate random number 2 to attend. Why should I go to yours? And the answer is that we have free beer.
Free beer. That's right. Rev Brew. And not for nothing, Revolution famously partnered with 134 in 2020. We had that Rev Brew sponsored. Remember that virtual event?
God, remember those days?
Oh my goodness. It was tough. It was a rough time. But now it's not a virtual event, it's an in-person event. So hey, comes full circle. Big game coming up this weekend, huh?
It is a big game coming up this weekend. The Red Stars are going to they're going to welcome San Diego Wave FC and, honor the return of Alex Morgan to the city of Chicago by saying, you know what, Alex Morgan, you've been doing so great in your 2022 that we need to host you at Soldier Field. And that's going to happen. So I think one of the big things going into this one is obviously the Alex Morgan boost. I think that's something that the Red Stars have benefited from in terms of attendance. Before in the past, we've seen
the
pretty
Fire have pulled
crowds.
this move this year too. The best Fire attendance this season was when the LA Galaxy visited because Javier Chicharito Hernandez was playing.
There are some players that bring the people, that really bring the people in. And Alex Morgan is one of those.
The answer is, who brings people in? It's Mexicans and Alex Morgan. Yeah. Those are the answers.
That's the list.
Right.
If you want to succeed in Chicagoland soccer, you should have the main attractions be somewhere on the spectrum of Mexicans and Alex Morgan. That is going to be the key. We're jokes. We're having fun. We're excited about what's going to happen on Saturday. But, Alex, we had to have this little crossover because, we didn't want to just act as if there's not another game happening on this day. It is a doubleheader.
It's between the tailgate and the match, so
it's true.
We're kind of
stuck. It's like the opener. The opener.
The Fire
the
are
opening
opening
set.
for the Red Stars.
That's right.
Basically as an additional Lollapalooza event.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
definitely the undercard.
Yeah.
For sure.
For
It's a real soccer fest.
Yes.
Energy. So I guess our main question to you, Alex, for our listeners who don't necessarily find themselves MLSing.
Don't do the broso, so to speak.
Yeah, so to speak.
Including
but
me. I fill me in.
For folks who are listen, I'm into the concept of watching 12 hours of soccer a day. And what can I expect with the Fire as they take on Atlanta?
That's a good question. So for those who listen to both of the CHGO soccer podcasts, they will know that Pat McCraney and I declared the Fire dead about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
They have since made us look very stupid. They have won 3 games in a row, only conceded 1 goal in that time, including winning in Cascadia for the first time in their history.
How's the Power Cube doing?
The Power Cube is powering up a bit.
Nice.
There were
Love
some
that.
questions about
It's a slow start, right?
There was some questions about motivation.
Okay.
The power cube being Jordan Shaqiri, for those unfamiliar with the Swiss-Albanian box-shaped number 10 who plays for the Fire. Hopes were that his motivation would be high this year because he is still a star for the Swiss national team who are playing in the World Cup this winter. There are some fears that maybe next year he won't be quite as motivated, but those were creeping in earlier than expected. But these last couple of games, it seems like he is developing a good relationship with some of the Fire's other attacking players, namely Chris Mueller, Schaumburg native, who used to play for Orlando City in MLS.
That's right.
And John Duran, who is an 18-year-old Colombian striker who is supposed to be this very promising player who, isn't intending on spending more than like 2 years in MLS.
Okay, so we talk a lot with the Red Stars about like the NWSL doesn't have a homegrown rule. We know this,
right?
But with the Red Stars, the way they draft, the way they recruit, a little bit homegrown. They have a number of Chicagoland natives who are going to be playing in this game.
Yeah,
Fire does have a homegrown rule. Do they? So how many Chicagoland? We know how strong it is for women's soccer.
Right.
Is it a similar hotbed for men's?
It has not been historically, but that is something that is starting to change since the Fire changed ownership a couple years ago, when basically there was a big regime change about 3 years back. And one of the things the Fire said, you talked about what's a superpower to get people to come to Soldier Field. You talked about Mexican players being one of them. The Fire don't have a great track record with Latino talent, particularly Latino local talent, contributing to the roster. Jairo Torres, who is Mexican, was the first Mexican player signed this year in 12 years. But there's a lot of younger guys who have Latino, particularly Mexican heritage, one of them being Brian Gutierrez, who's 19 years old, I believe, and has become a real contributor. So he's one of the younger guys to look out for. The star, though, right now in terms of Fire homegrowns making a name is Gabriel Gaga Slanina in goal.
The goalkeeper, yeah.
Who is currently subject of a reported $10+ million bid from Chelsea in the Premier League. Their backup goalkeeper is also an 18-year-old from Chicago, from the Chicago Metro. His name's Chris Brady. So Chicago really, we've talked about this on the other podcast, just leaning into the American men's soccer stereotype that all we do is goalkeepers. And so now really all the Fire now do is teenage goalkeepers is kind of the market they're cornering. So there is definitely more of a young local flavor to this team now than there used to
Alex,
be.
also Pineda, right? Isn't he local as well?
Yeah, Mauricio Pineda, also local, went to college at North Carolina, so did not come through the Fire's youth system right into the first team in the way a lot of these other young kids are, as he went off and played at Carolina for 4 years. But Pat and I actually highlighted it's weird when he steps on the field this year, the Fire win, and when he doesn't, they lose. So it's good to see young Chicago natives making a big impact on the Fire in a way that has not historically been the case.
I was thinking about this week when I was doing the written piece for CHGO, just kind of talking about, the Red Stars relationship to the city proper and Soldier Field and stuff like that. And what I realized is that I think only one Chicagoland women's soccer player has ever played at Soldier Field, and I believe that was Casey Kruger for the U.S. Women's National Team in 2019.
That sounds right.
It was during the farewell matches.
So that one, I thought that was kind of interesting, kind of going back to that, because I remember I went back, I still have the audio from the post game from that match, and she got a last minute call up due to like some injuries or something. It was the last game of the 2019 Victory Tour. Jill Ellis's last game as coach of the U.S. Women's National Team, and Casey Kruger at the time, Casey Short, got the call up and started. And so I remember talking to her after that match and just being like, how did that feel to go play on Soldier Field? And that was in front of like 33,000 people. There were a lot of people there. And she was like, she's just like, I never thought I'd have the opportunity to play like a half mile from my house in front of my friends and family, which is so funny to hear a Naperville native say, because in terms of NWSL, you have a lot of players who play so far away from their families. So for her, she's relatively local, but the added element of actually being in the city was huge for her in that moment. And so I guess, Sandra, maybe we should chat a little bit about maybe this, and it was also interesting talking to Sarah Griffith this week, because she's also a Naperville native, but she just got here. And so it's just like, it's really interesting to be like, we're going to have Vanessa DiBernardo, who has played for this team for 8 years, and she's finally going to get to play in Chicago.
Field,
And then you've got someone like Sarah Griffith, who is great, and I honestly hope she starts, but she's just like rolling right in and just like, yep, Chicago, we got it, you know?
Well, it's just, it's just the opportunity is just sort of finally arrived.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that's part of like the excitement around this. I know you've declared the Fire dead on the podcast, and that's fine. It's
Rest
a little
in
different.
peace.
For
Reports
the
of
Red
their
Stars.
demise were greatly exaggerated.
Great, yeah.
And that's
bit.
fine. That's what we do here. We still only speak facts at CHGO, and if they're,
Listen, I trust
if
that
they're
it was
muertos,
true
if
at
they're
the
muertos,
time.
they're muertos.
It was true at the time.
Based on the information we
We
had
had
at our
available.
disposal.
Yeah, no, but I just think that it's just kind of nice, to put it simply. I mean, the opportunity just wasn't there because of how professional soccer in Chicago has existed.
Yeah.
There was a Fire early days, yes, Soldier Field, but there was not a pro league for women at the time that the MLS was getting kicked off of the ground.
Right.
That came a couple years later, and then that first iteration of pro soccer did not include the Chicago landscape, and that only came in the WPS, and then that didn't go so great, and then you've got the NWSL. So for the first time in the Red Stars NWSL history, it just sort of is lining up. Like, the Fire have made their return to Soldier Field. They've been playing their games in this facility, and there just happens to be this opportunity. So there have been double headers with the Fire, but always in Bridgeview, at Toyota now SeatGeek, but it's just sort of the timing of everything. And I think for the Red Stars' benefit, they're the team, they're the soccer team in Chicago that's finding success on the pitch right now.
Yeah.
And it's only right, I think, that they're the headliners in this one.
Well, I mean, I think it's also cool. I had this thought thinking about some of the Red Stars attendance issues this season, which there's a lot of factors to that, but one of the ones where I'm like a little bit like, this is great to hopefully get them in front of a new audience, is because it is kind of a new team, right? There's no Julie Ertz, there's no Sarah Gordon, even just from like last year, not even going back to Sam Kerr.
Right.
And so it's a very different looking team that's playing in a very different way. And I am like hopeful but it's fun. They are way more fun to watch this year than they were last year.
Yeah,
way more
night
fun.
and day.
Yes. And so my hope is that when they put this out, and I think San Diego is also a great team. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm hopeful that people will be like, okay, I didn't know these players before, but now I do. And I'm interested in following them where they're going, because the Red Stars are in this weird sort of uncanny valley of they're more interesting than they've been in years, and nobody knows them that well because they're like brand new. Yeah. And so I do hope that, first of all, I hope that some people who maybe saw them in 2019 will be at this game. Maybe if it's their Fire fans who came during that big push in 2019 and then fell off a little bit. But I am always curious a little bit, too. We know that there hasn't been a huge crossover for Fire fans and Red Stars fans.
Right.
Partially just because both teams have struggled in attendance. Neither of them are like powerhouses in attendance. So this is a question like to both of you. I don't know the answer to this. Do you think the fact that the Fire are in the city is like a mental block for people being like, I'm never going back to Bridgeview?
I think there's some of that, but I mean, I don't think you can really see that as a factor of why the Red Stars have struggled this year. I mentioned this on our show this week that I can't really quite wrap my head around why, because to your point, they are more exciting this year. Like, they're a really fun soccer team to watch. Events like this are a good way to try to hopefully kind of merge those fan bases a bit, because you talk about the attendance struggles each team has, but with so little seeming overlap between the two fan bases, if you put them together in a way, you could, the attendances wouldn't look so bad if, a lot of the people who go to Red Stars games went to Fire games, and a lot of people that went to Fire games went to Red Stars games. So, yeah, I think this is a good opportunity. I think with the Fire in the city now, maybe SeatGeek is a little out of sight, out of mind for some people. Like, I don't think it's inconceivable that people could turn up to this game and not realize that, say, Mallory Pugh even plays for the Red Stars. Because I talked about this as well this week. She has not been marketed in the way you would have expected a player of her profile to be marketed when she came to this city. They also might not know that there are so many local Chicago products. It'll be cool if Sarah Griffith gets the start in this game. And obviously Vanessa DiBernardo is a staple at this point. And lot of younger players. I mean, Tatum Milazzo has
Yep.
become the most
Amanda
seasoned
Kowalski is
defender
another one,
in the
yeah.
back three, despite
Yeah.
being, 24 years old?
Yeah.
So I think there's so much to like about this Red Stars team, both in terms of how they play, but also the storylines they bring. And I just don't think people know those players and know those stories, to your point. And stuff like this, I wish it could happen more often. You mentioned, Sandra, there used to be more of these, and the schedule used to just allow for more of these. It is crazy that this is the only time this entire season that the teams could have pulled this off because of their schedules. It's the only day they both have home games, which, again, is out of the team's control,
Right.
largely. But just, I remember in pre-COVID, there were 3 or 4 of these dates a year where fans would try to go to both
Go to both
games.
at the same
So this
time.
is a bit of a unique thing.
Well, what's been kind of fascinating is there's been more. I think there are more weekends this year where the Chicago Sky and the Red Stars are playing
Have
at the
more
same
overlap,
time
yeah.
Right.
than the Fire and
Yes,
the,
we've run
and the
into
Red Stars
that
do. Yeah.
scenario as season ticket holders. But I'm with you, Alex. I think this part of playing in Soldier Field and talking about how it's the opportunity is the right way, but that's sort of like a broad sweeping statement that also includes the potential to capture the eyeballs of casual fans, because that's an area that the Red Stars have struggled in general. Like, let's try to find, the casual fan who might go to 1 to 3 Red Stars games a year and just try to get their butts and kind of keep them in the seats. It's pretty much been, for the most part, dedicated season ticket holders who have been able to sort of sustain, that level of fan engagement when it comes to, in-game attendance. But being able to play not just at Soldier Field and doubleheader with the other pro soccer team in town, but we've been joking about this in the build up to this, and even today before we all got here, because there's a lot of traffic and foot traffic in the city, but that's also an opportunity as well. Like, you're going to have a place amongst one of the busiest summer weekends in the city, and that's a big deal. And there's going to be, depending on how the turnout comes to this, with this event, there's going to be people who utilize that as like a negative, perhaps.
Right.
Like, there was just no way that the most unpopular sport in the United States was going to attract a ton of fans at Soldier Field. Like, there's just no way. That was just impossible. And sort of use that as like a roadblock.
Just like imagining some like old timey news or sports reporter with a cigar,
Yeah,
just
that's
being
the-
like boring.
Yeah, it's like, football. I'll tell you about football.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Chicago Bears, who are going to go 3-14 this year.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
correct.
exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
No, but I just think that's sorry, maybe this is me being glass half full versus half empty, but I think that is a cool energy to have. That this is, if you're not someone who's like, let me go to Lollapalooza, if you're not someone who wants to, just sort of hang out at the random street fest, if you are someone who wants to go to a sporting event,
Yeah.
this is going to have a different energy for you if you are entering this match as a fan who's primarily going for the Red Stars.
Yep.
It's just a different fan experience, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But then there's that other side of things where it's like, maybe you do capture those couple of casual fans. The next game that they go to has to be in Bridgeview, Illinois,
Right,
and
and
they're
you gotta
going
find a
to SeatGeek, and they're like, oh,
car,
this
and- yeah.
is a little bit different.
Right.
Than what I felt or experienced at Soldier Field. So then there's that other challenge of being able to take away certain things and look at negatives and positives and pros and cons and blah blah blah. But I think when on the women's soccer angle side of things, I think there's going to be more pros. I think there's going to be more opportunities when we're looking at it at an event like this. And honestly, I mean, hopefully, I wish that it has a successful turnout, and I wish the event a ton of success, because I want to see more things like this in the future between these two sides. It just, again, we're talking about how it just happened to be this weekend specifically, where it just
I'll
worked
say
out.
that I'm a little annoyed that the leagues couldn't come up with another weekend besides
Yeah, this one is
Lala
pretty
frickin'
busy.
Palooza weekend.
I'm genuinely curious. Literally anybody can answer this. Do you think we're going to be able to hear it? Do you think we're going to be able to hear Lala from Soldier Field? It's probably
I
about a
hope so.
mile away.
I hope so.
Like as the crow flies.
The early part of the day, it'll depend. I've got to check who the headline. We're going to be. That second game starts at 7.
It's like Machine Gun Kelly or
Oh
something.
Lord.
Yeah, is
I
Dua
would hope
Lipa?
Dua Lipa, I think. I think it's Dua Lipa versus Machine Gun Kelly
Oh
at the
my
end of the
God.
night.
So, but Dua Lipa
Yeah.
will be on the bigger
Pull the
stage on the
schedule.
south end, and I'm going to be honest. If we could just hear Dua Lipa playing
dun,
throughout the Red Stars
dun,
game,
dun,
that
dun,
actually
dun.
might work.
Claire and I have talked about this.
That might work.
As two
Without
folks who
me,
have
no.
invested in the sky this year and going to games, we're like, God, you know what soccer needs? Like some actual hype music. During
Yeah, it is
And
Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa
Yep.
might be giving us
Headlining
that during the
South
Red
Stage.
Stars. Although, yeah, it's going to
Oh,
be
no, that's
later.
Friday.
This is
Who's
tonight.
Saturday?
Hold on, I'm
Who's
So, yeah,
Saturday?
checking.
let's see the Saturday
Give me a
schedule.
minute
Who we
here,
got
give me a
up
minute.
Thursday.
from 4 p.m. onwards?
J. Cole.
Well, listen, as someone who saw
Not
J.
quite the
Cole
same vibe.
at Bonnaroo, I hope it's a different energy.
Yeah.
Palooza.
Yeah.
Because it just was wasn't my favorite act at Bonnaroo, but
Ooh, hot take.
controversial
Yeah.
take.
Kygo going to be on the other end. That would be maybe a little bit
A
more
little bit hype.
in-game music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But,
But I mean,
either
I'm
way.
here for it.
We'll be
'Cause
getting
that was something that
introspective
we
during the
talked
soccer
about.
game.
Yeah.
We've had some fan experiences, Claire and I together this year. A lot of them have been Chicago Sky games, but there's also we went to a really cool game at Soldier Field where we went to go see the men's Mexican national team go up against Ecuador, and we were like, Jesus, this is like
It's something different.
it's
Yeah, for
beautiful.
sure.
It was
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
love this. Just like, let me soak it all in and drink it all up. And it just was like these little things where we talked about even on this show here, where it's just like, God, like just like the most random of things that you could do to sort of, engage your fans and sort of keep them, I don't know, just sort of entertained. I mean, especially in the when you have a game that can maybe have a couple lulls in it and stuff like that. And we all know like how sort of fandom comes into play within those kind of laggy moments of a game, especially if you're the home side and you hear the players talk about it too. It's like, it gives us the energy to get through those really kind of dull moments or being able to sort of break through. So I'm a little curious to sort of see how that's going to sound, look and feel and
Yes.
Yeah,
sound.
right.
Because
Obviously, there's like different opportunities for video packaging
Yeah.
at Soldier Field than there are at SeatGeek.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what
Yeah.
what Red Stars content, if any, there is additionally, because one of
Right.
the things the Fire have done really well is they've got a really good media team who
Yeah.
puts out some really cool
Agreed.
video content,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that maybe there was some collaboration and we'll see some cool Red Star stuff.
Yeah.
I know we're probably overdue for an ad break, but I will say quickly to add on to what Sandra was saying, when we talk about crossover, being at a handful of Fire games this year, the Red Stars players have been at Soldier Field for a few games.
Oh, yeah.
I saw
They've
that,
been
yeah.
showing up and
Jenna
supporting,
Davidson,
especially a lot
Firestarter.
of the local players and a lot of like this kind of crossover between the veterans who've been around for forever and some of the local players seem to be the most interested. I'd like to see the Fire do a little bit more of the reverse. I'd like to see some
Right.
of the Fire players at more Red Stars games, and maybe that's another thing that this game can kind of be like, hey, they've been here supporting you guys. Maybe a reminder that there's more you guys could be doing to go out and support them.
I think we're talking a lot about opportunities, and there's not one, but there's two games here. And where there's two games, that means there's more bets.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best ways to support CHGO Red Stars and CHGO Fire and all CHGO in general is by downloading the PointsBet app and using code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com and we'll help you out. In case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can download the PointsBet app right now and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet.
Wow.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Putting any money on this game? Fire,
Not yet.
specifically.
Still mulling it over. I
Okay.
think I haven't looked at the lines for this game. I would guess it's probably fairly toss-up. Maybe San Diego slightly favored.
San Diego's really interesting to me, maybe to talk shop for a second. Like
Yeah.
San Diego, I think they certainly have their weaknesses, but it's an understatement just to sort of say how much they need their national team players. Like when they get Naomi Girma back, they get Alex Morgan back.
Yeah.
Sophia Jakobsen, I wouldn't expect back already, but maybe it's only been a week, right, since Sweden was eliminated, or less than a week. And I think that, I asked Chris Petroselli this week of just like, how do you prepare for a game like this? Because the last time they played, Chicago didn't have Mal Pugh. She was still out with a concussion. And I think like Danny Colaprico was coming back from like illness or something. So it's a little bit of a clean slate between these two teams. And so I'm really fascinated to sort of see what happens, because at this moment it's hard for me to gauge who is the better team. I think San Diego is very steady, but we've seen how they can get shut out if you're willing to really work off the ball against them. And we've seen them run out of options. I'm specifically thinking of that loss to Angel City a couple weeks ago. But we also saw Chicago kind of flop in their last game. So it's hard to see
anything's
where people are
possible.
at.
I think the energy around the top half of the table is really good for NWSL this year. It's a real, top 5 teams can beat the other amongst the top 5.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and
like
you've
that's
got
just sort of the energy.
OL Reign and Portland, who both feel like they're kind of underperforming their potential maybe a bit.
Well, Portland can only get 3 points at a time, but they're winning 6-0.
Right, yeah, that's the thing. It's
They're
like
stacking them up.
there's no prizes for this right now, but when you look at the way the table's been shaking out, Portland above the Red Stars right now, it's just you feel like the Red Stars are going to have to really kind of dig their heels in to hold on to the idea of a potential home playoff game, which they would have right now, at this moment in time, but it's going to be tough. I mean, I think...
Well, and at this moment, they would play a quarterfinal as well.
Right, so, no bye. The biggest thing, though, I think about San Diego is this is going to be the first game for Naomi Girma back at San Diego Wave after earning CONCACAF Women's Championship best 11. And I think those of us who'd seen her play quite a bit knew how good she was, but now it's she has arrived as a top level defender in this league.
This is also going to be the first time Dahlkemper and Girma will have played together for a while, because Dahlkemper was out with her rib injury, and then she came back while Girma was out for CONCACAF, and now finally they're going to get their 2 starting center backs back.
I think if you're looking line by line by line, if you're looking at strengths and weaknesses, I think you're giving that advantage defensively to San Diego right now. I think we're starting to see some of the concerns, some of the cracks a little bit for what it means to play in this Red Star system defensively without a Tierney Davidson, without a Kayla Sharpo, without a Casey Kruger, so on and so on and so on. So, yes, a lot of the first-year players or less experienced players who are within these positions have been putting together some pretty good performances. We've been seeing it from Zoe Morse. We've been seeing it, from Tatum Milazzo. They went out and signed Kowalski to try to help a little bit with the depth. But I think what we've seen throughout this month a little bit, especially coming off of some of these games where they conceded a lot of goals, we're starting to see maybe some of those question marks and those concerns. And then what happens is when you go through a season, when you start having more and more games, there's more and more footage for the opposition to take a look at, to try to target any potential problematic areas or highlight any particular 1v1s that they're going to try to be looking at. And I think if you're San Diego and you're trying to figure out a game plan with your front line versus Chicago's back line, there are some areas that they're probably going to be targeting.
Right. You probably, if you start Kelsey Turnbow, you set her on the attack and you have her, trying to force turnovers. That was Houston's whole game plan, and it worked really well. It'll be a little bit different with Nair and net, I think.
Yeah.
But
that's going to help.
That will help a lot. But I think,
especially up against Alex Morgan, who, if there's any goalkeeper who knows about the movements and the tendencies of Alex Morgan as a striker, Alyssa Nair should be right at the top of that list.
Yeah, there was a good piece that came out this week, I think, and I forget who the outlet is, so forgive me, but about how Kaylin Sheridan prepared to play against Alex Morgan in the CONCACAF final, and how they went over tape over tape over tape. They did data analysis of her preferred spots, specifically on penalties, and just obviously Kaylin Sheridan is Alex Morgan's club teammate and still gets wrong.
Right.
So Alex Morgan she's tough to play. All right, I have a question for Sandra first, and then Alex, you can say what you think. So the thing in my brain this week as well is Chicago needs to start. If we are thinking playoffs, have to start thinking about who their best 11 is.
Yeah.
Because they haven't really spent much time with that this season at all. It's been a lot of rotation. The position that intrigues me at this moment is actually the wingers. So, Sandra, for you, if you had to play a playoff game like tomorrow, who are your starting wingers?
My wingers?
Yeah.
Gosh, it's so tough because of what we've seen in this first half from the Red Stars.
Are we assuming Pugh is the striker, and we're asking who's playing alongside
No.
her?
She plays in the midfield. I'm talking about the
wing backs,
the wing backs.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just coming off of a big tournament, but if she's healthy, I don't see how you just don't have Bianca St. George on the starting 11 as often as you can.
Yeah.
Even with just the first half of the season,
Right.
Where we got to see her, you just saw these really, really nice moments, specifically between Pugh, between BSG. It was something, call it the work that they were doing in the off season or the build up to this regular season, the way they're able to kind of read each other's movements and play off of that was very promising. My hope is that in this second half of the season, we'll be more dedicated to sort of ironing that out and
Settling that
solidifying
down. Yeah,
it.
right.
So I would go with BSG on one hand, and I'm a little torn on the other side. I've liked what we've seen out of Jill Aguilera. But I think if it's about developing chemistry and keeping things going and ensuring that you've got a starting 11 who would start tomorrow, if the playoffs start tomorrow, you're probably going to slot in Rachel Hill.
Really?
At this point.
So not Aaron Wright.
I don't know. I think they're going to have some continued troubles in that back three, and I wouldn't be shocked if maybe we start seeing Aaron Wright come back a little bit. I love her up top.
You know what? That's
I
a good
love her
point.
getting in.
That is a really good point that I did not think about.
I love. I will always cape for Aaron Wright to be played up top. When Sam Kerr came, and they were still trying to figure things out with Sam Kerr, I was like, put Aaron Wright up there. And we saw Aaron Wright playing alongside with Motts and Kerr for a little bit. So I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that. But this is pitched to me. So I'm not sure this back three is going to be the same back three that we see in a playoff come 3 months, 4 months.
Because they still have no depth back there. I mean, they are playing the only three players.
And my thing is, God forbid, because knock on all the wood that's around here, something happens, down the line. Because, I mean, things like fatigue that comes in, minutes management because of that, just like playing the whole general grind of a season that can wear and tear on a soccer player's body in general, let alone a defender who's got to make a lot of recoveries and cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, because her availability is the other question. I'm with you, Claire, that I would like to see Aaron Wright out there, but man, you can't count on her right now to be there. You talk about the minutes that get built up over years. She came back after she had her son, and it seems like she was briefly fully back up to speed, and then she got injured, and you'd love to have her out there, whether she's playing on the left of the back three or at that left wing back spot. And so I'd put her there with Bianca St. George on the other side if the game is tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I think
have other options. I do think Hill is a good other option as well.
The question
especially because she's more of a defensive. I mean, which is funny to say because she's used to be a striker, but she
works hard without the ball.
Yeah.
Sarah Lubert maybe needs to do a little bit more of that, but again, Sarah Lubert's most natural position would probably be to be in one of those.
It would be across Pugh, I think.
It would be in one of those box midfield advanced spots that and again, the question is obviously this is probably a bit of a rabbit hole. Who's the striker is still not settled.
Cook.
I mean, I'm with you for Ava Cook. General question, though, that maybe you guys have some insight on, maybe not. Does Chelsea Dauber exist? I know,
she went back to Australia. She had to
question.
go. It's been rough. I feel bad. I feel really bad for Chelsea Dauber because, I don't because
it's a good thing they signed her through.
She got to go play international soccer, which is very cool.
Exactly, across the world.
Yes.
And I think that's the biggest issue is that. So we've all seen the issues with visas so far this year with people. It doesn't happen fast. By the time she got the visa and she got over here, she's a very young player. This is absolutely, no disrespect to the W League. This is the most intense, highly professional league she's ever played in. So they're working her in. The Red Stars maybe have some other young players that are a little bit more American League ready right now. And then she leaves again. And, you know,
it felt like she was, it felt
she was
like
getting there.
It felt
Yeah.
like in terms of like, I think she had a knock at one point. It felt like in terms
right.
of her training and development, the moment where you would have said, this is about the time we'd see her make her full debut, she
That's
left for
when
Australia.
again. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know if I didn't actually ask if she was back in market. That was not on my radar. But
I believe she is, because I think I saw social media posts of her touring her boyfriend around Chicago.
Love that.
As it seems she returned from Australia with him in tow.
Cute.
Whatever gets you up to speed.
Yeah.
By all means.
Might you say that it's only what you need?
Ayo.
Whatever you need.
Whatever you need. Hey-o.
That's a transition.
Pronounced like Owen. Owen, only what you need. It is 100% a plant-based, well, it's a 100% plant-based, but it is also 100% a plant-based protein shake that gives you nutrition that works as hard as you do. All of their products are free of artificial ingredients, allergen-friendly, no gluten or dairy, easily digestible. The Red Stars are getting ready for, I mean, honestly, I was going to say, if you're like a festival goer, we talked about this with Pitchfork,
I was about to say.
you should get some freaking Owen, man, because that's how you're going to make it through a
just
dang
slam
day.
that protein shake before you head out the door. And
Yeah,
you're gonna be
load
set.
load up. And so
You're going to be set.
Owen and CHGO have partnered up to give you an awesome offer. You can get 20% off your first purchase at liveowen.com. That's liveown.com with the code CHGO20.
You got to break up those seltzers.
I love it.
You know?
I know, it's true, right? It's like you gotta get something in your stomach if you're just gonna, right? If you're heading over to the Bud Light, specifically seltzer stage, you know,
Yes.
you gotta have your protein first.
If you're planning on hitting up the tailgate.
Oh, that's another good one.
For all that
It's
awesome
so true.
free beer from
Yeah.
Rev Brewing, you got to make sure that you're ready to go.
It's so true,
Protein
and that's a
shake.
long day. I mean, I was even thinking about that. You know, if we have the tailgate at 2, there's the game, there's the fire game, and then the Red Stars kick off, I think, at 7. So it's gonna be a little bit of a marathon. So bring your stuff.
Bring your A game.
Yeah.
Question
Oh, yeah.
for the two of you. Claire, I'll let you go first, and Alex, follow up, unless you both have the same answer. But there's a possibility that San Diego plays Alex Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a possibility that the game plan might just be, hey, player X, it's your job to just stay in her pocket. Who are you assigning that test to?
Oh, that's tough.
Claire Watkins.
That's a tough question because I honestly think the player I would task with that would be Zoe Morse, just because I think she could do it without physically taxing herself as much as maybe some of the her approach to defending is a little bit more spatially aware than more about 1v1 athletic battles, because nothing against her, she's just not that tight. She's more of a Becky Sauerbrunn kind of a player in terms of she's not gonna beat you for pace, but it's about, again, angles, using her brain to cut things off. Except I think that Zoe Morse is also their distributor out of the
tough
back
test.
line.
Yeah.
So she can't really be the just defensive player. So I'm going to say Kowalski, actually.
Oh, man. Okay.
That's an
All right.
athlete. You have an athlete on Alex
Athlete.
Morgan, and
All right.
so you put Kowalski on her.
I think it's tough because of the way the Red Stars play.
Right.
Like that formation, again, a back three. I mean, the reason way back when the back threes even became a thing was as an answer to a 2-striker system. So I think the way that I'm with you, the way the back three is set up, the most natural position to ask to be that roamer a bit is that most central of the
Right.
center backs, which is where Morse plays. But again, it's not great because she's also the distributor, as you mentioned, versus if you were playing, as the Red Stars often used to play, in a 4-2-3-1, you would probably either ask a Sarah Waldmo type.
The dual six.
So you would ask one of your sitting sixes out of
Right.
possession. You'd have DiBernardo drop in a bit, and you'd have one of the sixes basically serve as a kind of auxiliary third center back
Right.
with the purpose of marking Alex Morgan. So
Right.
it is going to be interesting to see how that works. On the same token, I'm interested to see how San Diego approaches Mal Pugh, because
Right.
given that they play in a back four, and again, if you you talked about lines earlier, I think if you'd give the defense to San Diego, you'd give the midfield, though, I think, to Chicago, even
Yes,
though
I
they
agree
are,
with that.
as we know, very depleted this season in terms of minutes. You know, Sandra and I were talking before we came on air. it feels like Danny Colaprico and Vanessa DiBernardo might just like snap in half at some point with both of them are
lot of
going.
minutes.
Both of them are on pace to eclipse 2,000 minutes this year, which in NWSL is a difficult thing to do
Right.
just by the sheer number of minutes available. So I'm interested to see how both teams kind of respond to those star players because I don't think either team is really well set up to stop the abilities of the star on the other side.
Yeah.
Again, I just don't think it's really in the nature of either of these teams to defend the main attacking threat on the other side.
I think that's a good point,
Yeah.
which hopefully will make for a fun game.
Yeah, give me like
entertaining
a
game.
3-2
Right, just
Red
kind of
Stars
a-
victory
All right,
sort
all
of
right.
game.
Yeah.
Alex Morgan and Pugh don't get the goals because they're too busy in somebody's pocket. Who's getting the goals? For Chicago.
Cook.
I'm gonna go like the really inside baseball homer pick and bring up Sarah Griffith again.
Yeah,
I know,
right on.
Yeah.
As you know, having had the opportunity
Sure,
through
there'll
the
be some
Naperville
Boilermakers
connection
out there.
Yeah.
to interview her earlier this year, like it's just been really cool to see how quickly she's come up to speed. Dialing it back to the Wabanzi Valley days, which is a fun bookend because it's also where Vanessa DiBernardo went to high school. But
Well, she talked
very
about that.
many
She talked
years
about that
apart.
this week. Yeah, about I asked her. Obviously, there's the local element and stuff like that, but the thing that's specifically interesting to me about Griffith is that the league's been around for 10 years, right?
Yeah, she can
She's
remember
in
it.
her early
Yes.
20s, right? So the league's been around since she was 13, and so the fact and Vanessa DiBernardo 8 years ago, so she would have probably been maybe starting high school when Vanessa DiBernardo started with the Red Stars. Not to age Vanessa DiBernardo, I'm sorry.
Or all of us.
I know. I was gonna say we are the same.
Yes.
But just being like when you're growing up in that Naperville system, pointing to Vanessa DiBernardo, Casey Kruger, Megan Monefusco. She mentioned Kayla Sharples, and being like they play pro ball now, and so growing up and just always having those players be like, yeah, they're pros in Chicago. Is huge for the continued development of that talent pool, which we know is very, very deep in the women's game.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I like Griffith as a sleeper pick. I hope she gets I want her to get a lot of minutes tomorrow.
This is a point where it's maybe a time to say it would be cool if you were able to pick NWSL game goal scorers in betting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Hey,
100%.
PointsBet, maybe just a suggestion. If
Yeah.
help us out here, we could have some more fun with the picks of the week that we do on the
100%.
CHGO Fire Show. Because
Right.
yes, it would be cool to be able to as sports gambling becomes more part of the scene. Let's get as many different weird, oddly specific options on women's soccer games as we do the men's soccer ones.
I also have my one other goal scorer, which I think this is a sentimental one, but obviously I think for a number of reasons. First of all, if she scores, I think the Chicago will win the game, and also I think that she's done this before in front of big crowds in Chicago, and also just again full circle moment, Vanessa DiBernardo.
DiBernardo.
That'd be
She got
a really
the
cool moment.
moment in 2019, right?
One of the best goals in 2019 was in
one of the
fact
best goals in
from
Chicago Red
Vanessa
Stars
DiBernardo,
history.
and not Sam Kerr.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Yeah, so I would love to see that as well.
I would love to see that as well. We talked a lot about the local players in that we're going to be potentially seeing this weekend in the doubleheader. I love that Alex was filling us in on all that as well. And a thing that happens, not to get all sports debatey,
Oh boy.
but a thing that happens
we go.
sometimes
Anything toxic?
we hear
Toxic?
No, we hear the comparison game that's made.
Sure.
So it's like you're trying to find an equivalent player to sort of say this player reminds me of so and so. So let's just sort of flip that a little bit. If you were to describe the most Vanessa DiBernardo-esque player on the Chicago Fire, who would that be?
Right now, it's probably, I can't really say Jordan Shaqiri because Vanessa works a lot harder off the ball than Shaqiri does.
Yeah, imagine if they asked Shaqiri to play sometimes you're a distributing six, Yeah.
I don't think that would go over particularly well. The answer right now is probably Brian Gutierrez, who I mentioned earlier. He's most often this year played on the left side of a 4-2-3-1 as a left midfielder, but he's probably most naturally a 10. Cannot play there, though, because of the aforementioned Shaqiri playing in that position. So, but also Brian is, I think, literally 10 years younger than Vanessa, so doesn't exactly have that comparison in terms of the veteran experience. The Fire don't really have that kind of player, and it's something I think they've honestly missed, that person who is an
Like a line breaker.
not only just a line breaker, but an institution kind of to the team. It's something that the Fire really haven't been able to develop, that kind of continuity with someone who is like identified
It does feel like
as the franchise.
They bring leaders in, but it feels like it's always kind of at the ends of their careers.
The current one that's really been promising, and he is more toward the end of his career, but he's not Bastian Schweinsteiger end of his career, is Rafael Schihos, who came over from FC Köln in the Bundesliga and has really just, there's kind of two different 30-plus MLS signings. There's guys here for the paycheck, and there's guys here to actually work really hard and be part of something. And the person who really bucked the trend in the most refreshing way was Wayne Rooney when he came to DC United and really, really cared about that team. And now he's back as their manager and has kind of come full circle. But Rafa Schihos playing at center back for the Fire, who is a distributor, who is tied for the team leading goals as a center back because he's a really good header of the ball. He has come in and he has been that sort of leader that the Fire have really been missing, someone who is not only vocal and a great locker room presence, but also is clearly one of the best and most important players on the field and is going to start every game when they're healthy. That's just not something the Fire have had, and with how young this team is, that's been really important. So it would be really cool if 10 years from now, one of these young guys, whether it's Brian Gutierrez or someone else, had been successful at that level, had, maybe at least been around the conversation of the national team picture and had become an institution of the Chicago Fire like DiBernardo has with the Red Stars.
Say maybe
You know how you do that, maybe?
with energy.
With energy from your athletic greens.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, that's perhaps how you stay on a team for a really long time.
For
That's
10
how
years,
I would do
in fact.
it. I was gonna say I turned 30 in a little less than a month, and I'm just like imagining being a professional soccer player at this point in my life, and just being like, oh my god, I'd have to be perfect. I would have to be perfect, and so the way you could do that is with Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. It costs you less than $3 a day, cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's got over 7,000 5-star reviews. It is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Athletic Greens keeps you going.
Things you need to do
Yep.
before you come to the tailgate.
That's right.
Sponsored by Revolution Brewing. You need to.
I know, it's like we're talking
Double
about all this
protein
healthy
shake.
stuff.
You need a
Yeah,
double
right.
protein shake
with your
with
Athletic
Owen.
Greens.
You gotta
Owen in
eat
one
your
hand, Athletic
Greens.
Greens in the other.
That's
just
right.
double fist to that protein
And
shake.
then you
Beer.
get to the
And then beer.
tailgate.
Yeah.
The official CHGO tailgate at the Waldron Deck at Soldier Field, kicking off at 2 p.m. Then that's when you grab your brew
That's right.
and you come say, hey, hang out for a little.
That's right.
That's how you, in that order.
So who's going to win?
Listen, we're not going to come on
Hometown
this
sweep,
show
baby.
That's right.
and do a crossover
and say that there's
and
going to
say
be
that
any
they're
L's
not
on
gonna
this
win.
day.
I'm going to
L
go.
free.
Let's do our picks and our best Chicago accents. I'm going to go.
Boy.
I'm thinking about the Red Stars going up against the Wave. I'm going to go.
Wave.
I'm going to
San
go
Diego
Red
Wave.
Stars 13. Pugh gets 2 hat tricks.
Nice.
Missed extra
Wave
point in there.
0. What you got, Alex?
I haven't done a really good Chicago in a while. I
Chicago.
think my only I just think of the guys from SNL who do the
Yeah, the
the old
Bears.
Mike Ditka,
Yeah.
the Bears, the Hurricane Ditka.
Yeah.
I think said it earlier. I think the Red Stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gonna win 3-2. Mal Pugh and Alex Morgan both
Nice.
scoring, and the Fire 4 in a row, 2-0.
Nice.
Like that. Like that.
I don't know anything about either the Fire or Atlanta United this season, so I'm
That's
going to
bad.
say 7-0 Chicago.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
Touchdown. And I'm also going to say Alex Morgan gets a hat trick, but it's not enough.
But it's not enough.
4-3 Chicago Red Stars.
Ooh.
I didn't put a fire
Wow.
pick.
She comes back. It's going to be like Red Stars, Alex Morgan.
I'm gonna
Red
say-
Stars, Alex Morgan. Red Stars, Alex Morgan.
Back and forth.
And
back
then
and forth.
final Red Stars.
Amanda Kowalski,
The
90
Amanda
plus
Kowalski header.
6.
The Amanda Kowalski header
Yeah,
for the win.
That's right.
Man.
Oh,
Fire,
what a-
I'm gonna say Fire Grand Slam
Yeah.
4-0
Ooh,
all the way.
Love that.
love it.
Enjoying that. Listen, we want to have fun. I think that's
It's gonna be a good
It's
day.
going to be a good day.
Just listen.
right.
Scorelines aside, ridiculous predictions aside.
Yep.
It's gonna be good weather this weekend.
High of 80 degrees and
You're
full
gonna
sun
have-
tomorrow.
Yeah, so
Oh,
bring a
yeah.
hat.
Bring a hat.
Yeah.
Gonna have not one, but 2 soccer games. Not
That's
gonna
right.
have not one, but 2.
Pace
17
yourselves,
tailgates
hydrate.
with us.
Pace yourselves.
Yeah.
Number 1 on the list. And we're really excited to just be participating. You can say hi to Alex. Alex,
And
you're
it's
gonna
nice
be
to
there.
have the NWSL back. You know?
Yes.
Been
It's
gone.
gonna- you can say hey to us. We're
Yeah.
gonna be there.
We're gonna be there.
because we're gonna be celebrating the NWSL's return.
That's right.
And we just can't wait to see everybody.
Yeah,
It's
please
been,
come
it's been
through.
It's been a big build up to this moment, and we're
Yes.
hyped to do it. And a big part of this too is, the opportunity. There was a period of time here where we were navigating some things where we didn't get a lot of opportunities to gather
Yeah.
as a community, soccer
Sure.
community, and this is going to be one of those opportunities that have sort of a special angle with it. And so we can't wait to participate in that, quite frankly. And it gets a chance for us to engage with all the awesome CHGO Red Star and CHGO Fire listeners. And listen, if you've been, joining along with us for the ride here and the show, just want to remind you before we close out that one of the best ways to support CHGO is with a CHGO membership. You can go ahead and sign up with that, and you get access to all sorts of podcasts and live shows, post-game fun, post-game shenanigans, really, I should say. Premium written content from all kinds of great writers, especially Claire Watkins here to my left at allchgo.com. You get access to all kinds of merchandise, free shirt when you become a member, and you get access to the members-only Discord, the CHGO Lounge. So sign up for a membership, and you'll get all those cool benefits and more. We can't wait to see everybody tomorrow.
Yeah,
2
see you
p.m.
tomorrow.
Waldron Deck, Soldier Field,
2 p.m.
Fire Atlanta, Chicago Red Stars versus San Diego. Be there.